My first NDE occurred when I was about 5 years old. Of course, it wasn't known in 1953. I remember watching the new family move in and seeing that they had a boy about my age who I wanted to meet. His mother said no since he was having emotional problems, and she urged everyone to keep away. I felt awful for him, so I went to meet him anyhow, confident that he would realize how lovely I am and like me. I approached his house, climbed up the stone steps, and knocked on his door. When he answered, he screamed, "Go away!" In a rage, he pushed me backwards down those stone steps as hard as he could. I flew through the air and went down the steps over and over, not understanding why the steps were jumping up to smash me in the head. With each hit, I jumped out of my body onto my house's terraced grass, divorced from what was going on. I popped in and out, eventually staying on the grass. 2 homes down, I saw a woman hurrying out the door and heard her screen door slam shut. It was really quiet because there was a gentle breeze blowing. I hadn't realized how high I'd climbed until I noticed a small girl in a brown dress slumped on the ground far below and wondered who she was. "Oh, she'll be okay. The lady will help," I thought as she kneeled by her. I realized it was me down there when I noticed the silvery white cord linking me to the girl. I felt like a kite, and I was content with where I was. I flew in that direction until I felt warmth behind me and turned around. It was the most significant sun I'd ever seen. Golden yellow, with rays of every color of the rainbow radiating out for miles, almost dreamlike. It seemed to get closer, but perhaps I was going faster. I was surrounded by hues, and I reached out to touch the sun. It was really bright, but I could see right through it. I was back in my body the moment I touched it, and the woman was cradling me and telling me everything was fine. She claimed to be a nurse who saw my fall from her house and went out the screen door to assist. She stated I had taken a nasty fall and had stopped breathing. She'd had to give me artificial respiration. She spoke at breakneck speed and appeared agitated. She brought me home, urging Mom to take me to the hospital right away. Mom requested that the doctor come to her house. I told Mom about my flight before he arrived, and he was there in minutes. He examined me and determined that I'd had a severe concussion. He prescribed some medication and told me not to get out of bed for 3 weeks. Mom was sad about the fall, but was fascinated by my time as a kite. She then told her own NDE, completely different, but with some of the same aspects, when she was a teen suffering from typhoid pneumonia. She was curious about what lay on the other side of the sun. She appeared upset that I couldn't tell her, so I chose to recreate it in my dreams that night. In the 3 weeks following my fall, I attempted every night until one night, I'm not sure how long, I had another flight to the lovely sun, just as real as the first. But this time, I went through it. The colors, on the other hand, were vibrant. I was on a garden path with numerous trees and gorgeous, brilliant flowers floating in the breeze. A butterfly landed on the flowers in front of me. Birds chirped, and a bunny jumped across. I strolled cheerfully along, enjoying each new scene, until I came upon an old man dressed in a pure white long robe. He had long white hair that was wavy, nearly ringlets, and a long beard. He was approaching me. I exclaimed, wondering how my father had arrived before me. Not my daddy, but my father. I was overcome with delight and love and dashed to meet him. We talked for quite some time. He was pure love and gentleness, while I was emotional. During the conversation, I transformed into a young woman. I'm not sure what was said or how long it took, but I suddenly shrank down to 5, sobbing violently on my knees with my hands covering my face, then putting my arms around his legs and robe, holding on tight and pleading to stay, tears flowing down my face. "Not yet," my father answered. "You have work to do. Remember to be good to people," he urged as he knelt. "And animals too?" I inquired. "Yes, and animals too, but especially people," he answered gently. I awoke gasping for air and suffering from a severe headache. Maybe I shouldn't, but I regard these journeys to be one NDE rather than 2. It was really genuine, not a dream. I've never questioned it. I could tell when a relative died before my family did for years after that. I used to have death dreams in which I was aware that a family member had died. I was never incorrect. This dream occurred 3 days before my uncle's death when I was 22 years old. After he died, I wondered if my knowing and saying anything had caused him to give up. This was not a gift. It was full of death and grief. I prayed for it to be taken away, and the severity of it faded. I wasn't terrified of dying, but feeling responsible for someone else's death was too much for me. When I became aware of this information, I rarely spoke of it after that. This NDE has drastically and completely altered my life. Because be good to people has so many angles and options. My life is constantly growing. I was inconsolable after losing both of my parents so close together. I was feeling like an orphan. I've never believed in suicide because it's so avoidable and wasn't part of the plan I was given. From my first NDE, I realized I didn't have a choice in the matter. With so many people passing this globe in such a short amount of time, the entire extended family was saddened. It was a particularly awful summer. We'd lost ties as we each dealt with our losses independently. I found comfort in thinking that I would see my parents again in that wonderful land, all in due course. I had taken some time off work, and when I was 46, I was about to return, but I chose to play and explore a bit more before returning back to the grind. The last journey was to the ocean, where I bought some fresh oysters with the intention of savoring every taste. When I got home, I made jambalaya and ate almost the entire meal. I felt a weird feeling as I finished the last bite and dashed to the bathroom. I collapsed shortly after arriving and was unable to move. I tried again and again to rise up and call for aid, but I was too weak. I couldn't get my head off the ground because I kept passing out. I was really ill, and my attempts to be heard by anyone outside my flat were futile. After a few minutes, I attempted to reach the phone in the other room, but failed each time. I knew I was going to die if I didn't make it. I tried again, and finally succeeded. I dialed 911, and the medics arrived quickly. They hooked up devices to me and took my blood pressure. The medics said they'd raise me up to a sitting position to see what happened. I told them not to, since my blood pressure wouldn't be able to support me if they did. They did it anyhow, saying, "Don't worry, we've got you covered and won't allow anything to happen." As predicted, I passed out with my head bowed forward, cutting off my air supply. It was fine that I felt myself succumb. I was perplexed and absolutely surrounded by the blackest black. Perfect black, and fully relaxed in what I believe was my front room. I saw my TV in front of me, but it was in a different shape. It was a perfectly rectangular shape. Geometrically, it was ideal, and the white on the screen did not cross into the blackness. Inside, there appeared to be a toga party, with 5 or 6 couples cheerfully speaking with one another. I reasoned that I must have woken up in the middle of the night and ended up in the living room, turning on the television. After watching this party for a while, I concluded that it had to be a B-movie, and I was expecting something along the lines of Clash of the Titans, with giants and strange animals bursting around the bend of the hallway at the end of the room. I'd be damned if I wasted my time viewing it. I reached for the remote to change the station, but there was no remote or couch to be found. There was, in reality, nothing there. My arms, legs, and chest were all perfectly intact. I was thinking extremely clearly, like if it were crystal clear. My laser-sharp vision was unobstructed by weak eyes or defective brain connections. I was adamant about changing the channel. I decided to get up and change it on my TV set straight. I hurried to the set without even trying to move as soon as I realized it. There was a surge of wind and an unbelievable sense of speed. When I arrived, the TV was life-size. The space was stunning, and I was peeking in on the party. I knew I was dying at that moment. I was overjoyed because I knew I'd be seeing my folks soon. The floor, walls, ceiling, and columns were all composed of the most stunning luminous white marble. Geometrically, they were ideal. The light they emitted was completely contained within each laser-sharp line of each feature. It did not pass into the following line or feature, decreasing its splendor in any manner. To the left, against the wall, was a white marble table with a punch bowl filled with the strangest, mystically colored liquid I'd ever seen, as well as several stemmed glasses of an odd geometrical design. A giant green parlor palm stood in the left corner, just in front of me. Everyone had a glass of the liquid in their hands. They were dressed in the same white luminous material as the rest of the room. These people were lovely and youthful. I recognized them, but I didn't know their names. I was persuaded that if I could make it to the end of the room and down the hall, I'd be able to enter the realm and look for my parents. My mind was racing, and my ideas were all jumbled together. How does one walk on that beautiful floor without scuffing it? Would it support my weight? What was it about the stone that made it so luminous? Could I get to the other side of the room without being noticed? Was the palm large enough to conceal me? What are their given names? I recognized them, but they're younger versions of themselves. What is the material of that punch? How did it get so bright and clear at the same time? It was blindingly light. I was positive I wasn't ingesting any of that. How are you going to drink from that glass without spilling all over yourself? I stepped up to the floor, which held me and kept me from slipping, and crouched behind the palm tree to watch. What if this was a sound stage, I wondered. I didn't want to be rude. Were my parents also present? I started looking for their faces. When I did that, everyone turned and came up to me, greeting me by name in the most courteous way. They seemed thrilled to see me. So much for sneaking to the back corridor. So much for escaping the shame of forgetting their names. A drink of their liquid punch was presented to me. I politely rejected, but they were adamant. When they spoke, their mouths moved and I heard sounds. Every thought I had was being heard. I attempted again to get to the rear of the room, but they smiled and offered me more drink. When I declined, they surrounded me, with women on the inside and men on the outside. And you guessed it, in two perfect circles. I realized it would be pointless to decline, so I accepted to take a sip of the liquid with no earthly parallel or name, which I've come to call nuclear. My gracious hosts gently encouraged me as I cautiously raised the glass. I was back in my body as soon as the glass hit my lips. The paramedic was holding me and laying me down again. My fingers and arm produced gestures as though I was still attempting to lift the glass. I inquired as to how long he kept me upright. 2 seconds, he exclaimed. Are you sure? I inquired. Yes, he said. The timeline is unfathomable, but I didn't have a feeling of time while I was there. The physicians worked feverishly on me when I arrived at the emergency hospital. My body temperature was said to be very low and decreasing, and my blood pressure was nearly non-existent. I asked the nurse what I had after several hours. I don't know, she responded, but it almost took you with it. The doctor finally had a diagnosis after a night in the coronary care unit. The shellfish had caused anaphylactic shock. I couldn't have any more. I moped around for a month, thinking that the longer I lived, the more spiritual ground I lost. After all, my earliest memory was of the round sun and dazzling colors. Love, 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 peace, happiness, light, and my father, dressed in long white robes, receiving my life's plan. I'd gone to a toga party with strangers in knee-length togas. My parents had not arrived to greet me, and there was no message to return. I'd been booted out of the realm twice, and I'd come too early both times. Following the illness, I needed to stay hydrated, so I went grocery shopping and was delighted to discover a new sports drink. The color was completely new and luminescent, at least some of the nuclear quality. I bought as many as I could carry, thinking they would serve as confirmation of my travels. I phoned the 800 number on the bottle's back and spoke with the pleasant lady who confirmed that this was a whole new color and flavor. They had just opened a test market in our region without publicizing it. It was unexpected. The phosphorus in the drink caused the glow. I told her my story and had her promise not to take the drink away because it was the drink of life. She maintained a promise, thanks to the support of thousands of customers, and the flavor is still available today, 18 years later. So at the very least, I had a message. Remain hydrated. Oh, and everything is also perfect there. In addition to the sports drink, I always keep a live palm tree in the house. Having had 2 NDEs so far apart in my life, I've gotten some insight on the event. To begin with, regardless of the substance of the NDE, it is a real happening, not a dream. They're always willing to assist us. We are not alone, and there is yet hope. Every NDE is unique in content and is unlike any other NDE. We appear to get what we need at the time in a way that we can understand, and perhaps enough to last a lifetime. We should never criticize those who have died for not remaining on Earth for us. Instead, we should be overjoyed at their new circumstances. We must respect all life, including our own, and not impose our will on others, nor engage in a way that limits or crowds their energy and life experience, just as the bright marble was properly divided. I'm sure there will be more to learn from these events, but that book has yet to be written. Please accept my apologies for the lengthy accounts. I failed concise in English class and can't manage to fit my life into the few boxes supplied. This was concise for me. However, I received A's in run-on sentences. Peace, love, and light to everyone who made it this far.